What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 64 of Dynasty Decisions. This is the first in-season Dynasty Decisions that we're doing. We got 8 teams to go through, number of contending and rebuilding type of questions. Things change once you get into the season. Even though it's Dynasty Fantasy Football, people are very reactive. You can get good deals on underperforming players. Danny's Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb's a perfect example in recent weeks. But yeah, we're covering everything Dynasty Fantasy Football in this video. If you guys enjoy at any point, leave a like, comment down below any of your thoughts, subscribe to the channel if you are new. But without further ado, how you doing?
Doing well. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. There are certain player value fluctuations that will emerge in terms of an opportunity standpoint on a week-to-week basis. You mentioned the CeeDee Lamb example. I tweeted out after week 2 that, this is an elite usage wide receiver. This is everything we want to see from CeeDee Lamb when he was valued at wide receiver 3. Yet his value dropped to 14 because the points weren't coming. You got to come in with a levy head, and it would lead you to a value like CeeDee Lamb. Especially if you follow me on Twitter, you would have noticed that notification. Hopefully you scooped up some CeeDee Lamb shares. But no, I'm ready to go. Dynasty Decisions is back. You guys have been waiting for quite a while right now. We wanted to bring it to you. We've been hella busy with the channel, redraft season, getting you guys ready for those drafts. But now we got a Dynasty video for you guys. The Dynasty Decisions keep you guys updated, keep you guys fresh. So good luck on your teams. Let's get into them. But before we do that, as always, let's hit the intro. All right, so we'll start off with the first team of the video, patron Jacob Krueger. I'll let you take it away with Jacob's team.
Yeah, so he's got a standard league, 12 teams, Superflex Dynasty. It is the first year, so we got to assume there's probably no monsters in this league. At quarterback, Kyler Murray, Ryan Tannehill, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, Michael Carter, Darrell Henderson, pretty fragile there at running back. Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Traylon Burks, Sky Moore, etc. at wide receiver there, and then Cole Kmet, Brevin Jordan as his main tight end. So he says this is his first year doing Dynasty in the first year of this league. He said he's mainly focused on building out draft capital. As you guys can see, he has 4 2023 ones, and then all of his 2024 and 2025 first, except an extra 2025 first rounder as well, and then a number of extra second rounders here and there. So he basically wanted to know, what would his team? Would we have any advice on moves to make / positions he should be targeting in the draft next year? Does he go best player available? Does he go all running back? Do I draft quarterbacks and tight ends? He said, I feel like I go a lot of ways with these 4 2023 ones, but he just wants some kind of advice. So for starters, I would say we don't exactly know how the class is going to shake out yet because we still have the rest of the college football season to play. But the answer to the question, do I do best player available? Absolutely. And that could mean you go all running backs, right? Because this running back class is shaping up to be quite good. It could mean you go, a couple quarterbacks. It could mean you take 3 wide receivers. We really don't know.
You mentioned he could go best player available, or, if somebody's willing to overpay and give you a ton of 2024 draft capital just because they want to pick in 2023, you could do something like that. The main move that sticks out to me right now in season, while we have this value opportunity on a guy like Trey Lance, is going out and seeing, okay, maybe a contender drafted Trey Lance at the 1-2 turn. And they are in a tough spot because they lost Trey Lance. They need quarterback production. They don't quite know what to do. I would look to move maybe Ryan Tannehill, Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, or maybe 2 of them and a second maybe to try to go after Trey Lance. Somebody might be low. Somebody might be scared about his job opportunity past the season. They need points right now. And better or worse, Ryan Tannehill actually looks like he can be a solid quarterback to the rest of the season, especially for a contender. So looking with Ryan Tannehill, looking with, maybe a 2023 second, I would not try to use any of my first to do it. But if you could package, again, some win now players, maybe a second to try to go out on a guy like Trey Lance, that is the move that sticks out to me the most with how you've structured this roster with Kyler Murray as your mainstay at quarterback and the receiving depth that you've built up for yourself.
Yeah, agreed. I think you can probably go after a number of different, quarterback options too. Potentially Deshaun Watson. He's still, on the mend with the suspension. He's always a guy you could go after. Zach Wilson just came back from the injury. He's still a young quarterback. Kenny Pickett's going to be getting his start soon. He's another guy that maybe makes some sense to go after. At this point, you have a great receiver core. You have, a stud quarterback in Kyler Murray. You're kind of just going to let the rest of your team develop. You're going to let yourself spend all your draft picks and get up and build a war chest of assets for your team. And in this draft class, you're probably going to be addressing the running back position because the class is going to be pretty strong at that position. Hopefully you can get yourself a Michael Mayer would make a ton of sense for this team as well because week at that position, and hopefully you can walk out of this draft with 2 running backs, a quarterback, and a tight end or something. Because if you didn't want to draft a wide receiver this year, I definitely would not blame you.
Yeah, I don't blame you as well. I mean, your receivers are absolutely loaded to the brim, especially when Traylon Burks and Sky Moore come through. That'll be a very, very bright spot for your team. The other thing I will quickly mention as well is you have some very, very high leverage, high value type of handcuffs with Michael Carter and Darrell Henderson. They are the type of players with this structure where I'm holding them this year. And again, if anything were to happen to Brees Hall, if anything were to happen to Cam Akers, and a contender goes, well, fuck, I just lost my RB1. I don't know what I'm going to do now. Like, I'm in a tough bind. See if you can maybe get a 2023 second plus in a package back for one of those players. Like, if Cam Akers went down for like a month, like Darrell Henderson would see maybe late first type evaluation, early second type evaluation from a contender, which you might be able to coop. Same thing with Michael Carter if Brees Hall were to miss any time.
Yeah, and I think post week 1, I probably would have been shopping those guys because at the time they were, considered potentially RB2s the rest of the season, right? When we saw from Darrell Henderson and Michael Carter in the first game, I probably would have been shopping them then. And if you didn't, then I would keep that in mind going forward. Is that when you see value windows for those type of handcuffs, like Danny mentioned, whether it's poor play from the starter or injury from the starter, then you can definitely take advantage. So I think you well set up to just kind of let this thing ride. Spend your draft picks in next year's class. Like Danny said, if you don't want to spend your draft picks, you can always shoot for 2024 capital because that class is expected to be quite strong as well. And some people might be, enticed by a Sean Tucker, Jordan Addison on the board and be willing to give you the farm in their 2024 draft class to continue your way of building up that draft capital and those assets. So we can move on to Cody's team. You guys can see it there, a 12-team Superflex PPR league. It is a 6-point per passing touchdown league as well. He has Matthew Stafford, Justin Fields, and Ryan Tannehill as his top quarterbacks with Austin Eckler, Leonard Fournette, J.K. Dobbins, A.J. Dillon, James Conner, James Robinson, Ramondre Stevenson. So quite deep at running back with Devin Singletary and Melvin Gordon as like RB 8 and 9, which is like pretty strong at that position. Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore, Allen Robinson mainly at wide receiver, Dawson Knox, and a couple other guys at tight end. So it's pretty clear to me he's trying to compete right now. He's got a competitive window. But the problem is, and he sent this to me like 2 weeks ago, he said he is 1-2. I don't know what his record is currently, if he's, gotten things back on track, but I'd imagine given the players on his team, they're still semi underperforming, right? Deebo Samuel was semi underperforming. I guess Leonard Fournette scored a touchdown last night, and Austin Eckler had a better game this week than he's had in recent weeks. But I would say, given his team's current status, he said he has one other manager in his league that's going all in. He's waiting to see if he should restructure this team and be, patient maybe, and then the wins will come, or if he should, offload some of his aging assets before they start to lose value, like Austin Eckler, like Leonard Fournette, like like Matthew Stafford, like Devontae Adams, some of these guys. So given that he does have, a mid to late first in 2023, and he has most of his picks, what would you do in this situation with this team? Are you trying to offload all of your veterans? If you're out to, again, I don't know what his record is currently, but if you're out to like a 1-3 or a 2-2 start, are you trying to offload some of these veterans? Or are you going to maybe just be patient and see how this thing develops?
Yeah, I mean, with this team, you're clearly in a good spot at the top. Obviously, some of these guys have been underperforming to start the year, but I mean, we still have really good outlooks on these players. A guy like Leonard Fournette is getting all the opportunity. Punch went in this past week. Austin Eckler obviously looks like that main back now. 3 touchdown game, well performing. All the positive regression ended up coming in this past game. So, in terms of this team, I think like you are pretty well set into a competing window, though. I do really like this trade for you, regardless. Tyreek Hill for DJ Moore in a first. Basically, what you're doing with this trade is, as good as Tyreek Hill has been, he's looked fantastic. He's been playing extremely well. You're giving yourself multiple outs to hit. If DJ Moore ends up, rest of the season, maybe this Panthers offense takes a step up. He ends up performing. Maybe he could be a high-end wide receiver through the rest of the season, which is really what you need next to Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel. Then you're also giving yourself an out in terms of that mid to late first round pick. You could always use that pick later on in the season. Worst case scenario, if something happened to one of your running backs, you had to go buy a running back, you could do something like that. Or vice versa. If you hold that pick and you have liquidity in the offseason, you could make this team into a further contender. Maybe use that pick on a guy like Keenan Allen or something like that. Let's just say hypothetically, to build your team for later in the season or maybe going into next season. So I feel like, yes, losing Tyreek Hill, he's been playing extremely well, is tough, is a tough blow to have, but having extra liquidity to buy assets when you're in a contending window is the best way to stay afloat.
Yeah, the only issue I have with this team is that you're really, really fragile because you have so many running backs and not a lot of great wide receivers. If you could maybe do like a 2-for-1 deal to get a little bit stronger at
Yeah.
the wide receiver position, like, James Robinson's been performing at a high level so far this year. If you can flip James Robinson plus like, Javonte Williams might be out for a long time. We haven't actually heard news on that. If you can flip James Robinson and Melvin Gordon into like a wide receiver 2 type, that might be young, that has some upside. Like, I mean, even like, I guess you may not Brandon Ayuk because you have Deebo Samuel already on your team, but like somebody in that territory, like a Devontae Smith, maybe, you might be able to get up to that territory using some of those win now pieces if the team is maybe short at running back and maybe strong at wide receiver. You might be able to get away with some moves like that. And that also offloads some risk from your team, holding those running backs and getting a young wide receiver to help build around in case you do need, come the offseason, you don't win the championship and you want to dismantle this thing. You might already have, a young wide receiver that you can rely on. So I would say, again, wait and see how your record kind of develops. If you're 3-5 by week 9, then you probably want to start selling off some of your older assets. But if you rebound and you're 5-3 or 5-2 or whatever, then you can probably just try and compete this year and then reevaluate after the season is over.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Yeah, you're still in a good spot. Obviously, the record isn't great, but I'm assuming that you're going to be 2-2 after this week. Which I mean, with Austin Eckler doing what he did, Leonard Fournette scoring, Devontae Adams doing relatively decently, and Deebo Samuel still playing tonight, you're probably in a good position to potentially take down your matchup this week. But yeah, I mean, you're still in a competing window. You still have an out again if DJ Moore starts playing better, if this Panthers offense starts playing better, and he could be a top, maybe not top 15 receiver, but if he can get back to that wide receiver 24 type of range, obviously still an L compared to where we were expecting going into the year, but when you're using that as a complement to Adams and Samuel, that's really solid production, especially with the running back core that you have.
Yeah, and hopefully from a long-term perspective, DJ Moore gets a quarterback upgrade
Yep.
to the CJ Stroud or Bryce Young after this season because their
Yep.
quarterback play is a joke, and they're probably all going to get fired from a organizational standpoint. So I think you're in an okay spot. Again, you're going to need to reevaluate in a couple of weeks, but we can move on to the next team, which is for Bryan Harris. He has looks like a rebuilding type of roster here. In a 12-team super flex half PPR, he's got Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson as his main quarterbacks with a couple other guys there. J.K. Dobbins, Kareem Hunt, Tyler Algier, a couple other guys at running back, Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Gallup, David Bell, Tyler Lockett, and a couple others at wide receiver. And then TJ Hawkinson is his main tight end with 2 picks in each of the first 3 rounds of 2023, 2 picks in the first 2 rounds of 2024 as well. So I would say relatively like a balanced approach that he took here. It's not a, full status rebuild. It's not a full status competitive team. You're probably relatively competitive right now, I'd imagine. But he basically says, what is his best course of action for this year? He thinks it's a house money year. I probably tend to agree with you.
Yep.
Should he keep trading for youth and picks, swing a deal
Yes.
to get another playmaker to make a contender? Basically, how would we handle this season specifically?
I would keep trading for youth and picks. The move that really stands out to me after what he was able to do on Sunday, if you can get, value that would be attributed to an elite tight end for TJ Hawkinson right now. He had obviously a big game. Maybe you won't get obviously, Mark Andrews level value or Darren Waller level value, but if you can get, any type of first round pick capital after what he did on Sunday, you're taking that, you're running it to the bank. Obviously, it leaves you in a tough spot at tight end. But again, if you have your own pick, you want that pick to be as low as possible. So TJ Hawkinson screams out to me, especially if a contender, is struggling at tight end or relying upon fragility at tight end right now. Maybe they had Cole Kmet and it didn't really work out for them. They might be willing to give you a late first in either 23 or 24 for TJ Hawkinson. That is a move that sticks out to me like a sore thumb. Other than that, though, I mean, at running back, you're pretty much set up perfectly. Where if Nick Chubb were to miss any time, obviously Kareem Hunt holds extreme handcuff value with his standalone value that he brings. And I mean, same thing. If Cordell Patterson missed any time, Tyler Algier, maybe you could look to flip for like a second. I think that's a possible move. But aside from that, I would just kind of hold pat and see where the season takes you with this one, because you're well built to be a top team in 2024 as your players keep developing and as you use that draft capital to add to this team.
Yeah, the move that kind of sticks out to me is like if somebody thinks TJ Hawkinson's going to be great rest of the season and they have Pat Freiermuth or something, maybe they're not looking to move off of Freiermuth because he's a young tight end and he's performing fine right now. But if you can go TJ Hawkinson and throw in Tyler Lockett to a contender and you get Pat Freiermuth in a late first or Pat Freiermuth in 2-2s or something like that, I think that would make a ton of sense for the contender. Maybe they think TJ Hawkinson is going to be great for the rest of the year and they could use the wide receiver depth. That move would make some sense as well. But yeah, I think you got a lot of flexibility. If you spot any windows where the perception of the market is going to be higher on a player than the pick value that you think you can get in return for them, then by all means take advantage of it. If people are suddenly thinking that, Kareem Hunt's going to be worth a late first round pick because Nick Chubb goes down for a couple games, make a move. If people are thinking, Tyler Lockett's going to be a superstar wide receiver 2 or better the rest of the season because Geno Smith is playing better than we expected, make a move, see if you can get an early second for Tyler Lockett or something like that. So definitely a lot of flexibility with this thing. You have the ability to just kind of fill out your roster with your draft picks and also make moves where necessary. So I think you're in a good spot. We can probably move on to the next team, which is from Dane. Dane has his team listed here. It's Trey Lance, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, Tony Pollard, James Cook, Khalil Herbert. Very strong at wide receiver with CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Smith, Elijah Moore, Traylon Burks, Chris Olave, Calvin Ridley, David Bell. So very, very strong at wide receiver. Not really much to speak of at tight end outside of Trey McBride for the long term. And then 2 2023 firsts, his second, third, fourth, and fifth round picks. Doesn't have his second in 2024, but he does have 2 ones in 2024. It's a 10-team PPR Superflex Dynasty League. So they said they weren't allowed to trade picks during the draft. They kind of just had to follow the draft board, which is kind of unfortunate. But he picked from a 102, and I think he's done a great job, basically. He has a couple of trades that he has listed here. But first, let's kind of cover what he has listed with the team. I think he's built out a great, anti-fragile, productive struggle. You have Trey Lance and Deshaun Watson. They make a ton of sense as long-term options at quarterback. You've built out a fucking absolute superstar wide receiver core, and you can look to fill out your running back, tight end position in this coming draft. And you got a good draft class to do it, because if you can secure Michael Mayer, you can secure a couple running backs in the next couple draft classes, you're going to build out an absolute monster with this team.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at this team, he was able to swing a deal in the offseason. I remember in the last ED we did talk about it, but Herbert, Dotson, 2024 second for Justin Jefferson, Cousins, Ayuk, a 2023 and 2024 first. And if you're going to equate value there, for ease sake, let's just say Cousins, Ayuk equals Dotson in a second, which I would actually prefer the Cousins and Ayuk side in that stage. So for ease sake, let's just pretend like they're even, which they're not. JJ and 2 firsts for Justin Herbert. If we're valuing Herbert at about 4 firsts, I personally think JJ is worth at least two firsts and change, at least. So you're getting more than adequate value and also a staple franchise asset to add back by going from Herbert to Justin Jefferson. You're not really losing that, longevity factor of the asset in Dynasty. So I love this type of move. It gives you more outs. Obviously, if Cousins, if anything, like if we were to start playing extremely well, it gives you an out where a contender might want to overpay for a guy like Cousins. Same thing with Ayuk. If Ayuk starts playing very well and somebody might be able to give you, a 2023 first for him or a mid-projected 2024 first, it gives you way more outs to accumulating value, which is where you want to be as a semi-rebuilder house money type of team. So really like what you're able to do with that deal.
Yeah, he also says he's looking towards acquiring some young running backs, potentially a Breece Hall, a Travis Etienne, a Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker is the one that makes the most sense because I think his value is really suppressed right now on the market. And, the second Rashad Penny is no longer on the Seahawks. We're talking about a guy that's vaulting himself into the top 5, top 8 dynasty running backs. Breece Hall, now that we're seeing it, I don't think you're going to get a discount on him. So I probably wouldn't go after Breece Hall. But Kenneth Walker, you might be able to get, a contender might be looking for production right now. You might be able to send Brandon Ayuk, Khalil Herbert for Kenneth Walker right now. Like somebody might do that if they're looking for towards more of a contending window. And you also have some extra draft picks, second rounders and stuff like that you can play with to go after a guy like him. So I think that makes a ton of sense for your build. Travis Etienne, I think, is a little bit more of a risky acquisition in Dynasty, just given how well James Robinson's playing. But we do have some clarity knowing that James Robinson will be a free agent after this year. So it's possible that, Travis Etienne is the guy in 2024, but the issue is that his value will be suppressed knowing that James Robinson took over this backfield this past year.
Yep, no, exactly. Other than that, he also says would like to upgrade at tight end. His tight ends are currently, like Hurst, Brevin Jordan, Trey McBride. Honestly, I would just hold pat. You don't really need points from your tight end position right now. You still have an out for Trey McBride where Zach Ertz, once he starts fading down, he's an older player. He realistically hasn't really been an efficient option in years, but he as soon as loses that role, maybe loses some more athleticism. Like Trey McBride was still a second round pick. I'd really want to see what I have out of Trey McBride before I add more capital to my tight end position.
Yeah, and I think you might know that by the end of this year, right? Because if Ertz starts to fall off as the season goes along, maybe he gets cut, maybe whatever, he retires or something like that, and you don't need to use one of your 2023 firsts on Michael Mayer. But if Michael Mayer, who is a very good tight end prospect, falls to you, maybe one of your firsts is like the 111 and people are bypassing him because he's a tight end, then you can always scoop up some value at that point in time. So yeah, I would worry about your tight end position once you actually are in a competitive window. And if it's the only position on your roster that's not, a position that's good, maybe Darren Waller and George Kittle are like 2 years further in their career and they're, discount tight ends that you can get for competitive teams at that point in time. And you can worry about that in that point in time. As we always talk about, you're not looking to fill out your starting roster, especially when you're rebuilding. You just want to collect assets, and there's no real reason to force a tight end pick when you don't need to, because Trey McBride, like Danny said, could develop into a great tight end. He was good prospect, second round draft capital. Definitely possible that he becomes your long-term tight end and you don't even need to worry about this. So I think that's probably good on Dane's team. We can move on. But before we do, as always, got to pay some bills around here. Hear from our sponsors over at Manscaped. Football is back, baby. We're back to seeing Patrick Mahomes throw beautiful footballs all over the field, and your friends at Manscaped are here to help you sling your footballs all over the field all season long. With Manscaped's state-of-the-art technology, we'll have your weapon looking more loaded than the AFC West. Football may be rough, but your manscaping care does not have to be. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping using the promo code BUSH. Meet the best value bundle yet for the Manscaped's Pocket Rockets. This is the platinum package, and at quarterback, we have the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. You guys know it. It's a wily vet who makes sure that the unit is running smooth and scoring nonstop. With proprietary skin-safe technology, the lawnmower limits mistakes and protects the balls, plus it's waterproof, so you can use it in the shower as well. At running back, we have the Weed Whacker, and this one will break through and bust through all the holes that you need it to. On the offensive line, we have the unsung heroes, the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner, the Trent Williams and Corey Lindsley of Sack Protection, standing strong to keep your boys fresh and clean throughout all 4 quarters. And then at wideout, we have the cleanest duo in the league. We have the Manscaped Body Wash. We have the Manscaped 2-in-1 Premium Conditioner and Shampoo. They attract both the ball and all the ladies to the crowd. Plus, these two leave your skin and your scalp feeling hydrated. That means more play on the field and less water break. And then at tight end, we have the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs with the signature jewel pouch to make sure your boys are dry and cool. On defense, we have the only thing that you need, which is the Manscaped deodorant, aluminum-free, ultra-premium deodorant with refined cologne-quality fragrance. It keeps sweat and locker room scents from making any ground, plus it dries clear so the opponent won't even know what hit him. To top it all off, we have the best coach in the league, which is the Shed Travel Bag, as a free bonus, which will keep everything in place for you. So this has got to be a Super Bowl winning roster. Don't take my word for it. Go to manscaped.com. Get 20% off plus free shipping using the promo code BUSH. That's 20% off plus free shipping when you use promo code BUSH. Manscaped, turning your players into the MVP. All right, big shout out to Manscaped. We can move on to the next team, which is from Daniel Krauss. We have a 10-team super flex, full PPR, non-tight end premium. Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson as his main 2 quarterbacks. I have a number of dynasty teams with those 2 quarterbacks as well. Michael Carter, Raheem Mostert, bunch of, running backs there. A.J. Brown, Elijah Moore, Treylon Burks, Kadarius Toney, Tyler Boyd, Curtis Samuel, a couple other guys at wide receiver. Mark Andrews as his main tight end. And then in 2023, he has his first, an early first, which is not his, a mid to late first, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and then he has 2 firsts, and he expects one of them to be early to mid in 2024, and then again 2 firsts in 2025, and then 2 seconds in each of those years as well. So well stocked up at the draft capital spots there, with a young team, built how we would build it, right? We got 2 foundational quarterbacks. We got a couple great wide receivers, Mark Andrews as well, and then not really much going on at running back.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the way you've actually built out this running back core is perfect because a lot of these guys have real plausible scenarios for value accumulation. Michael Carter, for example, we mentioned in a previous team, but if Breece Hall were to miss any time, you scoop up potential 2023 second plus value for Michael Carter. Raheem Mostert, like if he wins the job, which he has by all accounts done so thus far over Chase Edmonds in Miami, I mean, he has been the lead running back in terms of snap share, in terms of opportunity share, in terms of valuable situational touches. Raheem Mostert has been the backbone for Miami. If he keeps showing out and he potentially, score some more touchdowns, receive some more receiving work, and is an RB2, like, again, that's an easy flip from a guy that was probably valued this offseason as like a late third. You may be able to get 2nd round draft capital for a guy like Raheem Mostert. So you've well built yourself to have a valuable baseline, but also a value ceiling of a lot of your assets, specifically at those cheap running backs you got at cost in your startup.
Yeah, exactly. So he also has some questions. He says, should I start to compete in 2024? Is that probably the window that I'm looking towards? and any moves that he should make to accelerate that winning window. He said league has low value on tight ends. He's tried shopping Mark Andrews, even though he doesn't really need him right now. But people are barely willing to give first round capital for Mark Andrews, which is pretty wild. And he said it's a shame because he has good young depth at tight end with Komet and Njoku and Gerald Everett and all those guys. He said, should I sell low anyways or just hold on to Mark Andrews? I mean, dude, Mark Andrews is only like 28 years old or 27 years old. You probably will still have him in a relatively good state by the time you're ready to compete. I would say if people are not willing to give you value on Mark Andrews, don't just sell him because he doesn't fit your team.
The only thing I would say maybe is why not see if they're low on tight ends overall, why not see what the value discrepancy between Andrews and Pitts is?
Yeah. If you wanted to just get younger at the tight end position, you could definitely do that as well. I think that would make a ton of sense. And he said overall thoughts on team and on the trades that he made. So let's get into some of the trades he made here. He sent away Terry McLaurin, Pat Fryermuth, Deontay Johnson in a 2020 second in exchange for Mark Andrews, Elijah Moore, and the 201. So I'm guessing he made this trade a while ago because it was, probably before the rookie draft. And maybe we've even already covered it on a previous Dynasty Decisions video. But in terms of a value pocket, what are your thoughts on that trade?
Yeah, this move is very easy to me. So, I mean, for ease sake, let's just say the 24 second and the 201 cancel each other out. You might prefer the 201, so be it. Andrews and Elijah Moore for Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, and Pat Fryermuth. I would say from a dynasty standpoint, Deontay and Elijah Moore are pretty similar. Obviously, Deontay Johnson more of the win now asset, but he is an older asset with Elijah Moore presenting more youth and more upside. But hasn't shown it thus far. So we'll just say they cancel each other out for ease sake. You're telling me right now I can upgrade from Pat Fryermuth, Terry McLaurin straight up for Mark Andrews. I am running to the bank. I'm cashing that in. I'm taking Mark Andrews, stable asset, top 2 tight end in Dynasty period, and is clearly a target earning alpha for one of the better offenses in the entire NFL for Baltimore. Sign me up.
Yeah, the way I actually broke it down was Muth and Deontay for Andrews and then Elijah Moore over Terry. But yeah, either way, I think it's still the same thing. He also traded away that 201, I guess, probably before the rookie draft in exchange for a 2024 second and a late 2023 third.
I like it.
We said that the 24 second and the 201 were relatively comparable value. You get yourself a late 2023 third on top of it. Take a shot at a late round running back or something. It might turn into Brian Robinson, in a couple of years. So and the final trade, this is just wild. I can't believe you got this done. This had to have been during the Treylon Burks has asthma and can't work out type of period. Jacoby Myers, a late 2023 second and a late 2023 third into Treylon Burks. Highway robbery. I'm not spending any time on that. That is an absolute steal. That should never happen in any league. I don't care how bad a rookie looks in training camp. That should never happen for a top 5 overall rookie pick. Just because he had some bad press. I'm assuming this is when he made the trade. That's an easy move to make. So I think you've done a great job. You've made some calculated moves so far. You're well set up to spend. Like you're probably going to be able to compete as early as 2023 because you got 3 ones in 2023 and a loaded running back class, right? So you're going to add, he's early first. You may get Bijan Robinson and then also maybe add Sean Tucker too, or add Jahmyr Gibbs, or add Zach Evans, or add Blake Corum or Tank Bigsby, or all these other guys that are starting to perform in this draft class. You have 2 twos as well to throw more darts at that position. You don't even really have to add many wide receivers to this core. You have an elite tight end. You'll have 2 elite quarterbacks at that point in time, and then you'll still have more draft capital in the future. So yeah, you're definitely very well set up. Clearly been paying attention around here. We can move on to the next team, which is from Chan Hughes. Right now, he sent us a score update. He's 3-1 right now with the 3rd most points for with this team. 12-team super flex tiered PPR league. So that's half for running backs, full for wide receivers, 1.5 for tight ends. And he also has Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Zach Wilson as his quarterbacks. Very light at running back with Devin Singletary, J.D. McKissick types. Wide receivers, he has CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, and Sky Moore. TJ Hawkinson as his main tight end in a tight end premium league. He might definitely be a big time sell high after the week he just had. And then also the draft capital, I believe, is what Danny was gasping at. He has, 5 first-round picks? A number of those in the mid-rounds, maybe one of those early, 2 seconds in 2023, and then he has an extra first and an extra second in 2024 as well. So, again, very similar team construction to the last team we talked about, where you have a couple foundational quarterbacks, an even better situation, I would say, with Zach Wilson as his 3rd quarterback and Lamar and Justin Herbert as his main 2. Already has that elite wide receiver core built out for the long term. CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, not losing any value anytime soon. Same goes for the 2 Jets receivers. Same goes for Deontay Johnson. You're well set up at that position. If you add nobody, you're going to be able to compete for a long time with those wide receivers. TJ Hawkinson's really the only guy that sticks out to me as potentially going after a different tight end. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, for sure. He's in a very good spot. The fact that you're 3-1 with the amount of draft capital that you have, very good pat on the back there. We will go over some of his trades here. You guys can see on the screen. But first deal, he was able to trade away Hollywood Brown, Miles Sanders, and Terrace Marshall. Ended up receiving back Christian Kirk, Devin Singletary, and a 2024 first. What are your thoughts on this deal?
Yeah, I mean, Christian Kirk has definitely gained some dynasty value given what has transpired in Jacksonville thus far. I don't think he's quite on par with where Hollywood Brown would be in dynasty value, but I mean, you're giving away junk, really. Miles Sanders and Terrace Marshall. I think Miles Sanders and Devin Singletary is pretty much a wash from a dynasty value standpoint. They're both kind of like win now type of pieces if you're looking for them. And you get yourself, the ultimate asset that you were looking for, which is the 2024 first in this trade. So I would much rather have basically Christian Kirk and a 2024 first than Hollywood Brown long-term in dynasty. So I think that's a great move. Trade number 2, he gives away his own 2023 first and his 2023 second, and he gets Derrick Henry and Elijah Moore. Now, at face value, not a huge fan of this deal, but I do think it's relatively fair market value. You get Elijah Moore, who, given your own 2023 first, is probably at the time it looks like you were maybe competing. I'm not exactly sure what was happening there, but you move Derrick Henry eventually in the other trade, so I don't mind this trade.
I was just about to say it looks like he basically just flipped Derrick Henry. So from what I'm getting here, he flipped a 2023 1 and 2 for Derrick Henry and Elijah Moore. His first is probably going to figure in that, the mid range, I would say. I mean, he's 3-1 right now, so that's looking like a later pick, to be fair. But he ended up getting a first and a second back for Derrick Henry. So basically, if you're, let's just say hypothetically, your pick finishes at 6 or 7, and the pick that you got back, the late pick, finishes at 11. You basically dropped 4 picks and scooped up a free Elijah Moore, is what I'm gathering from this.
Yeah, and a second as well. So, and you gave up a third. So you move up in that area as well. So I think you did a great job with those trades netted together. And then the final 2 trades here, he gives away a 2023 first, which was mine. He gives, or like his 2023 first, which was mid, 2023 first, which was early to mid, and he received Justin Herbert. So he went after Justin Herbert using a lot of the draft capital that he had built up. I made actually quite a similar trade to this before the season. I traded away 3 2023 first as well in exchange for Justin Herbert in a second. I think the ones that I gave up were a little bit even less valuable than this, but I think this is fair market value for Justin Herbert. 3 2023 first. Yeah, that's about what he's worth. I would say even potentially more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because only one of these is considered early to mid. So like worst case scenario, I mean, yours is probably going to be in that mid-ish type of area. I would say, given how you started the year, another mid and then early to mid. Yeah. I mean, Justin Herbert is one of these stable top 4 overall assets, period, in dynasties. I would say the top tier right now in terms of dynasty assets, you have Josh Allen at 1, Mahomes and Herbert, and then Lamar Jackson would be the by far top 4 overall quarterbacks in dynasty. So the fact that you're able to get that for realistically no non-guaranteed assets, absolutely love that type of deal. Next trade, you ended up giving up Dak Prescott, Christian Kirk in a late second for an early to mid 2023 first and a mid to late 2023 first. So if we're equating this deal,
I like it. Given where your team is at, you already had Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson and Zach Wilson. You didn't really need Prescott. Somebody maybe bought low on him because of the injury. Maybe they were going after him. But I think relatively speaking, this is decent value. You don't really need Christian Kirk given your team construction. You have 2 2023 firsts. I would say fair market value for Dak Prescott is probably a first and a second at the low end, like a mid first and a mid second in 2023. Maybe you could make the argument that like Dak and a 2 equals 2 firsts or something like that. But I think this is relatively a decent trade. I think I like the other trades better, but I'm not, mad at this one.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer Dak on face value, but it gives you more outs, I guess, because of where your team, where you want it to be. So, and if you did this after Dak got hurt, it's not like you were losing a ton of production going into it.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you've done a great job. You've built out a huge stable horse of assets plus players that you have. You're very well set up to just spend those 2023 first, have yourself an all rookie running back core pretty much, and just try and win in 2023. And you honestly are pretty competitive right now. So maybe you can even get something done this year if you want to move like a second for James Conner or something like that if you end up getting into the playoff hunt. So we can move on to Caleb Moore's team, which is the last team of the video. It's a startup mock draft or a startup draft that he did, 12-team Dynasty Superflex, again, tiered PPR, which means half for running backs, full for wide receivers, and 1.5 for tight ends. The team he was able to build out here, he's got Trey Lance as his main quarterback, Cam Akers as his main running backs with a bunch of guys there, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Jamison Williams, Darnell Mooney, Calvin Ridley. At wide receiver, Romeo Dobbs, who's definitely increased some value. Not much going on at tight end with Albert O, but he does have 2 1s in 2023, no second, and then all of his future picks. So what are your thoughts on the team? I'd say this is kind of like a shell of a rebuilder so far. What other moves would you kind of recommend, and what are your thoughts on the team?
Yeah, I'd be flipping to see again a guy like, I mean, they're all young assets to be fair. Not really much flip standout from a player standpoint. Maybe if you see one, you can let me know. But
Akers, maybe I would say, because he's a young running back. If he starts to, if we get a big Cam Akers snap share game or Darrell Henderson were to get hurt, people might take that to mean that Cam Akers suddenly has mid 2023 first plus type of value. And if you can get a random 2023 first for Cam Akers, I think I would do it in a heartbeat. Goes for 2024 first too. If you can just quickly move off of a volatile running back with an injury history, it definitely makes some sense.
Yep, for sure. So we'll get into some of these trades.
We can ignore the pre-draft ones. Let's just get into the mid-draft and post-draft ones.
Yep. So you basically flipped Terry McLaurin straight up for Cam Akers. 1304 versus 1302 doesn't really make a negligible difference in my opinion. So, pretty fair deal. Given the status of the receiving core, I don't mind taking an upside swing at a young running back at that time with Cam Akers. So, yeah, I'm not too angry about that deal.
Yeah, especially given how running backs are valued in Dynasty in general. If Cam Akers had shown a huge workload, you could have gotten a huge return on this deal. And I don't think it's dead yet. Like, I think Akers is starting to, get his legs under him, and he could definitely supersede Terry McLaurin's value going forward. And I already think it's pretty close, even given what we've seen out of Cam Akers so far. And then he has a couple trades post-draft here.
Sorry, this makes no sense to me. So you basically flipped MVS for a second and then flipped that second for Elijah Moore. So you flipped Marquez Valdes-Scantling for Elijah Moore? Is that what I'm reading?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know how you finesse somebody. Like, did you lace their coffee?
Yeah, must have. I don't know. Either way, that is a great. You probably flipped MVS for a second, knowing that this was before the season. Somebody was like, "Oh, MVS is going to be the new Tyreek. He's going to get all the big plays." Whatever the case is, anytime you got a bad receiver that hasn't shown anything in their career and you can get a quick profit, 2023 second, even if he works out as like a boomer bust wide receiver 3, you're not losing that much on that. Definitely been worse than that so far. So you definitely profited there, and you buy low on a guy that actually has a pristine profile, that had a great rookie season, PFF grade out the wazoo and target share and, high production, the span that we saw him as a full-time starter. Yeah, great move. Definitely profited out of that. I would say continue to try and make moves like that, right? If that's the league market in your league and people are willing to pay up for production, I mean, if we get any Ezekiel Elliott down games where he's, not looking good and Tony Pollard's out snapping him, or if he gets hurt, I mean, you could probably get a 2023 first for Tony Pollard at that point in time.
Yep, I fully agree. But either way, you're in a good spot. I would just look to see, like, if anybody starts peaking on your team, maybe try to add some more draft capital. But aside from that, you are in a good position to succeed for the long term. But either way, if you guys have made it to the end of this video, appreciate you guys for sticking around the last 40 minutes or so. We wanted to bring you guys a Dynasty Decisions update. A lot of you guys were looking for the video, looking for updates on your team. Really waited a month, obviously, with the redraft season coming. Wanted to give you guys that update, and we'll try to keep these up semi-frequently during the season. Obviously, a lot of, start sit decisions, rankings, etc. going on, but we'll try to keep these Dynasty videos in the influx of our schedule. So if you appreciate that, if you like that, make sure you leave a like down below. Helps us a ton in the algorithm.
Yeah. Also, leave any Dynasty related comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. If you want to be a part of future Dynasty Decisions episodes, we're going to probably during the season keep Dynasty Decisions, relatively speaking, to patron only questions, because we get a lot of those from our patrons. So if you guys want to be on future Dynasty Decisions episodes, you don't know what to do with your team, you may be in limbo right now, you don't know if you're contending or rebuilding, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange is how you can get access to first dibs on Dynasty Decisions. You also get access to our weekly rankings that way, our rest of season rankings that way, our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto, which is going to have a huge update coming in the coming days as well. So definitely check that out if you guys are interested. Also check out Underdog Fantasy, promo code FSE. Check out Manscaped, promo code Bush, as we talked about during the video. That being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.
Why you need the money?